So great to have your company on Moments That Matter. It is your Monday debrief of everything that's happened and everything that you need to know here in the Hungry Jacks NBL. Your first look at round 2 action. We saw some big away wins. We saw some massive individual performances. And we saw a couple of teams fall well below what is expected. I'm Jack Heverin, the very sharp-dressed man. To my left here is Derek Rucker. Morning to you, D-Ruck.
Good morning. It was a very exciting round, Jack. Some results that we probably didn't expect, and obviously the big one was in Sydney, where Cairns got off to a great start and just finished the Kings off. But in Adelaide, we have something special to talk about.
Oh, we most certainly do. We'll get to the Kings very shortly, but why don't we start with Bryce Cotton. New uniform, same Bryce Cotton, and if I was Peter Malinaskis, the Premier of South Australia, I'd be a little bit worried right now because very quickly Bryce might come in and take over that mantle as well.
Talk about making a first impression. This is exactly the way you do it. Bryce Cotton goes out there and gives the Adelaide faithful 39 big points. And Brisbane are partly to blame. They gave him too much space early in that first half. Do you not know who this guy is? He will eviscerate you. He is an assassin. He is a killer, and he went off. Finally, in the fourth quarter, they started to make some adjustments to Bullets, and they were able to slow him down. But at that point, it was too late. We just got to see all of Bryce's brilliance, and how happy must the 36ers be to have this guy?
I reckon we might have spoken about this a little bit on the top 15. To me, it feels like Bryce is going to play with a chip on his shoulder all season long. We saw him out there on Sunday. It was all business. There was no smiles. There was no reactions to the crowd. It was just all business. Do you think that this is going to be the mindset for this guy all season long?
I think so. And, Jack, you know what a purist I am. I hated to see Bryce leave Perth. I wanted him to be a one NBL club type of all-time great, but that's not going to be the case now. But what it has done is put this kind of venom in Bryce, this anger, this uber competitiveness that has already exceeded the greatness that we see from him in terms of his competitiveness already. And he went out there and he's taken that team over already. There is no doubt about whose team that is. And I think some of the Adelaide players are going to have to make an adjustment really quickly because Bryce is so great. Everything becomes about how he moves.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So from a 36ers perspective, they get the win at home, a sellout first up, and I think that's going to be the case all season long for the 36ers. But it looked like Zylan Cheatham worked it out pretty quickly, and it feels like Bryce Cotton is going to make Isaac Humphries the player that they want him to be. But what about the guards and the small forwards? Do you feel like that's where the adjustments need to come?
Well, the tough adjustment, obviously, and I think you're kind of implying, is that it goes to DJ Vasiljevic. He wasn't great in this game, had a tough time finding touches, but he's a smart enough player. He's going to have to learn to adapt. When you bring Bryce Cotton into your program, it is not a corporate partnership. He is the owner. Everybody else is an employee. That's the way this is going down, and everyone else has to fall in line and figure out quickly, how can I find my role in this team and help us win basketball games?
It was a really good performance, and we'll talk about the Bullets shortly, but they fed off the electricity. There is some intrigue about what they'll do with the remainder of the roster. We know that they filled one spot, so that's going to give them a little bit of versatility at that 4 and 5 spot, but it feels like we're not even scratching the surface with Adelaide yet.
Of course not. And the thing is now they just have to accumulate victories to allow Matt Weston and the ownership group time. The more victories they can add, the more time it buys them in the decision-making process, and usually the more time you're able to take, the better off you are. And now I know that goes against what I said a couple of weeks ago when Bryce became an Australian, and I said find an import right away. Well, that was when they still had Trez, so things have changed significantly in their dynamic, and if they can just pile some wins, be patient, get the right players, they'll be very good for a long time this season.
Small sample size, obviously, with Adelaide, but from what we saw yesterday, it looked really good. The other stunning individual performance that we saw from round 2 was our first proper look at Javale McGee. He's a monster. We don't have that many guys this size that come into the league like he is, but, I mean, from a first-up performance against Tasmania on Saturday night, he looked unstoppable.
Jack, I've been in basketball all my life. I'm used to being the short guy around tall guys. But sometimes there are guys still that are so tall and long and abnormally freakish the way they're built that it takes your breath away. And Javale McGee is one of those guys. his hands are so big, the way he grabs that basketball, and he's got such great length, and he's still a very good athlete for his age, the age of 37.
Did that surprise you, the athleticism? Because I think it caught a few people off guard.
It did, and the fact that he has a vibrance, he has a youthfulness about the way he plays the basketball game. And now look, Illawarra have some adjustments to make. They've got to figure out how to play with him because he is going to be a different type of dominant than Bryce Cotton. I think when you have a big man like this, you really need to scheme properly to ensure your primary ball handlers don't feel like they're just lost and become passengers.
We saw that last play there, so he took Josh Bannon down to the low block. I mean, Will Magnay and Josh Bannon are your 4 and 5. They're no scrubs. They're two really good players in this league, and he just looked bigger and more powerful than all of them.
The size discrepancy was incredible, and Magnay is one of the real tough-minded individuals, big men in the league, and I thought he made Will look really small, but overall, I thought Magnay did a pretty good job of defending McGee one-on-one. I thought he played really smart defensively, and he has a little bit more size than Bannon, but the others, Bannon and Williamson, it was just unfair to try those matchups.
So on this show, we see the comments and we see the feedback that we get on social media. Cairns fans do their best Shannon Knoll impersonation. They always say, what about me? Why aren't we getting the love? Yeah. Well, you are getting your love early in the show, Taipans fans, because 2 wins from the weekend. That's all you can ask for, and for the most part, Derek, it looked pretty good.
Well, let's talk about the Friday night game up in Cairns. They got a little bit of assistance with injuries from the Brisbane guys. Sam McDaniel goes down. JFL sustains an injury late in that game. And look, the Taipans did what they had to do, though. They knocked down big shots. They defended well. And I thought, at the end of the game, they just looked a little bit more confident. That's the person who I think can have a significant impact in this league is Rain Smith. Yeah. Jack, he's playing like he's been in the league for 10 years.
There were times yesterday, and I was watching at home, you're in the venue, there were times where you could just hear the air completely go out of kudos because Rain Smith's just knocking down these prayers.
His confidence is so high, and I guess, playing where he did at the University of Louisville, that is big-time basketball. That is a level that is right up there where, you're playing against a lot of future NBA guys or future big-time international players. And I think Rain Smith was a great acquisition by Coach Adam Ford and someone who provides a genuine three-point threat.
Sometimes when we get an import come to the league, it takes us a little while to work out how they play, but also the type of person that they are. Feels like very quickly we've worked out who Andrew Andrews is. This is a guy that got off the plane, Derek, on Thursday, had cramp in both games, played through cramp both of those games to help his team go 2-0 for the weekend. He looks like he's made of all the right stuff.
Jack, if you want to impress the Australian contingent on your team, go out and play right away. Yep. Go and practice right away. Go out there and give it everything you have. He cramped up in both games and came back and played. Yesterday at Kudos Bank Arena, his legs were seizing up in the quads. He couldn't get off the Kings bench when he fell into it. But Jack, the bottom line is this guy can play. And he's a real professional. He's a point guard. He's got really good size. And his shot selection demonstrated to me that he has a high level of self-belief that he's done. And the most important thing, this word right here, Jack, he showed that basketball mattered to him on the weekend.
That's that EuroLeague experience, isn't it? Big moments, physicality, stepping up when it's needed.
And mentally tough, which I know Adam Ford loves.
Just on Adam Ford and the Taipans, I thought his post-match press conference on Sunday, really interesting, where he wants to remove the underdog tag. He wants to remove the little engine that could moniker about the Cairns Taipans. He's saying that we're spending the money like everyone else. We've gone and recruited guys with NBA experience, with EuroLeague experience, great locals. It's a different mindset this year, isn't it?
I spoke to him before the game in Sydney yesterday, and I kind of was like, hey, great job getting the Brisbane victory. You kind of, you can come in here and play loose and easy. He was like, no, this is another game for us. This is not a free hit or any of that type of crap. We're coming in here to win a basketball game. We're not messing around. And I was like, okay. And that's the type of mindset, he has to have. And I thought he was fantastic yesterday in coaching and game planning. And for that reason, I think Cairns are going to be problematic. I said yesterday during the broadcast, I felt if they could get 6 or 7 road victories, that would put them in contention to get a playoff position. keep it in mind, they're going to be very hard to beat in Cairns once they get their crew functioning in a harmonic manner.
And doing it without Sam Wardenberg, which is going to be another 6 to 8 weeks. Are you concerned a little bit with their size or lack of size? They were beaten in both games with points in the paint. Rebound count wasn't too bad, but are there any issues there for you, do you think?
Yeah, they got pounded with the points in the paint, but yet, Jack, they did a pretty good job in defending the three-point line. So there's that trade-off. If I want to get hurt in this league in the regular season, I probably want to get hurt in the paint because the style of play in the regular season is different to the postseason. And right now, Cairns, you know, I'm a big advocate of how do you win basketball games. I'm not applying that to Cairns right now. All they got to do is worry about accumulating victories and worry about how later in the year.
So it is early in the season. We must stress that. But, and there is the big caveat, but that was not a good day for the Sydney Kings.
No.
At home at Kudos Bank Arena. Crowd was disappointing. Didn't feel like there was much electricity about the way that they played. They shot horribly from outside. Rotations were... there's so many things that you could point out from Sydney yesterday. You were there. What did you see?
And you prefaced it perfectly. It is early in the season, but the problem, Jack, is that it looked like the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So there's almost this continuity where that's just to say that it's early in the season probably is lame.
Is that an out for them
Yeah,
if you say
it's
that?
an out.
Yeah.
I'm sure Brian Gorgian right now is sick to his stomach watching that performance. Now let's break down the performance. I thought Kendrick Davis came out in the first half and he was dynamic. He was doing his thing. But I thought sometimes his shot selection wasn't good. Not in terms of the quality of the shot, but when he took the shots. There was a lot of early offense that I thought maybe felt the rest of the team feel somewhat disengaged. And look, he's a tremendously talented player. We know that. And in fact, he did get them back into the game in stretches in that first half. But somehow, either through scheme or individual players like Xavier Cooks or Jalen Galloway, figuring out a way to drive themselves and impact the basketball game on the offensive end, they've just got to get a better balance.
So they shoot 4 of 29 from outside, but so they had issues with the 3-ball all afternoon. We had a DMP from Tyler Robertson, who can shoot it. We had 6 minutes from Sean Bruce, who has made a happy habit of hitting big threes when it matters. And we had 3 minutes from McQuatch Malawatz, who shot it at a decent percentage last season. Why didn't they go to those guys more? Because what they were doing wasn't happening for them.
Well, I think this is a case where Brian Gorgian is probably opting to play the guys that they're really invested in, and that's Bull Quall and Jalen Galloway. I think these are players that the Kings feel are going to be really important and significant guys as they make run at championships over the next 2 to 3 seasons. But I like Malawatch, man. I feel like he's a good basketball player. He provides good value going forward. And to only give him a few minutes here and there, I thought was somewhat of a disservice. They've got to figure out the ball handling responsibilities between Dellavedova and Davis. I think they need to find other ways of getting Dellavedova involved in the offense. I think the back down muscle ball isn't good for ball movement. It looks dead out there when he's doing that. Sure, it provides key buckets at times, but if you're trying to get to a championship level and the Kings know that they are not a good offensive team, man, they got to figure that offense out quickly, because you don't want to get into this mindset where, okay, well, it's going to be better next week. It's going to be better next month. We've seen this over the past 2 years, and then all of a sudden, here we are in January, and they're fighting for a play-in spot. And that is unacceptable from the Sydney Kings program.
It is early, no doubt about that, and we should always preface it by saying that, but there are a few things that were concerning yesterday.
The NBL season never really starts until the Sydney Kings lose a home game.
Well, it's now officially started, if that is the case. Go back to Thursday night. For all of the concerns that Sydney had, one of their big arch rivals, Melbourne United, had no such concerns. They were really challenged by South East Melbourne in the first half, but after half-time, Derek, it was the professionalism, the system, the coaching, the structure, all of these different things that we've come to know and love about Melbourne United and the other teams hate. It came to the fore. They really just took over that game.
Well, they've got the height, they've got the professionalism, they've got the quickness, they're starting to get the shooting, and they don't even have their best player yet. And this is really, I mean, we never want to see a superstar of Chris Goulding's magnitude out, but it's actually not a bad thing for him as we look deeper into the season and forecast that way, because he's resting those legs. And it's allowing Melbourne United to build their team. Tyson Walker's out there. He's getting quality minutes. Tanner Krebs is playing really good basketball. And they're building something that is going to have legs down when they add Chris Goulding to the lineup.
Even just, I mean, Fabian Krislovic's start to this season, we'll get to thumbs up, thumbs down a little bit later. I almost went with him as my thumbs up because he's just rebounding. Dash Daniels is coming out, and we just see him knock down that 3 ball and defending like a terrier already. There doesn't appear to be a weak link in this team.
I think I have Dash Daniels as the #1 next star now. I think I've moved him ahead of Lopez. He just looks to move a bit better as I try and transform it and project it to the NBA game. Daniels is very good on his feet, his intensity, his focus, Jack, and you can feel the energy off of this kid when he's out there on the floor. In transition, in ball screen situations, he's very mature with the way he proceeds, and he makes very good decisions for a player of his age playing at a high level. But Melbourne United are just there again. They are there. And I know they've had disappointing losses in the past 2 championship series. Make no mistake about it. They are the standard of excellence in the NBL.
Southeast Melbourne, we had a good chance to have a chat to Josh King pre-game. He's always so great. He comes over to the commentary table and says hello. He said, we're not really sure who we are or what we are yet because they'd only had the 1 game against Cairns, which was a bit of a blowout. Do you think the second half against Melbourne might have given them a bit of an indication where they're at, perhaps?
Well, that little comeback where they actually took the lead, I hope they don't get false hope off of that because they're not strong enough. They need more scoring so that it brings out more in the Australian nucleus. And they have some guys in the Australian ranks that can get it done. And they're just missing, I hate to say it, and I hate to go back, but they're missing Matt Hurt. They're missing a player of that ilk. Maldonado is a 3rd import in our league. John Brown would be an ideal 2nd import, provided they had someone that could go out there and get them some buckets. And now you look at that position and you're like, what spot does he play? Do they need a point guard? Well, I don't think so. I think that jams up the guard rotation too much. They need that 3-4 type guy that can go out and score the basketball.
They need points, don't they? I mean, that was when it all dried up for them in the second half. Granted, a lot of that was Melbourne's defensive pressure, but they just, other than Nathan Sobey, they didn't have anyone else they could go to.
And so I think, you can go out and look in the international market and try and find, like I said, a 3-4. You can even go a 4-5. I think there's enough versatility between Lewis and Hunter that they can work it all out, and John Brown, of course, and give them a nice 4 or 5-man rotation up front.
Let's talk the JackJumpers. They go to Illawarra. We spoke about the presence of Javale McGee early on. That's another gritty road win. So they go to Perth last weekend and win at RAC, which is not easy to do. They go to the Wynn Entertainment Centre with the unfurling of the banner and a sellout crowd and all of the emotion attached with it. And they get the job done again, and they do it without David Johnson.
Well, they defend, and that's the thing about Scott Roth basketball teams. They're always going to start on the defensive end and make your life very difficult. And I thought Bryce Hamilton, Jack, he's just playing a classy style of basketball, never forcing, never rushing, finding opportunities to inject himself in the basketball game. And then it's stuff like this also where they're just patient. They're making you play defense until they find a seam or a fault in what you've done. But it's a mentally tough team.
Yeah.
And they're so much like their head coach in the way they attack things. Majuk Deng, unfortunately, sustained a hamstring injury. But, Tasmania are going to be tough when they get all their pieces together. And also given the fact now that I think we're going to see Tiger Campbell.
Good for him, wasn't it, on the weekend?
Big time.
Yeah.
The Johnson injury probably helped Campbell just go ahead and step up. Sometimes as the point guard, you can feel like you need to fix everyone else and you ignore yourself. You forget about yourself. You neglect yourself. And I thought Campbell being forced to go out there and make plays and actually put the ball in the bucket, it may have really kick-started his season.
It's from an injury perspective, so no Johnson still for a couple more weeks, and it looks like Majuk Deng will miss a few as well. At the moment, Derek, it kind of feels like that injuries might be the only thing that can stop the JackJumpers.
Well, I agree with that, but it never really affects them.
Yeah.
Remember last year when they had that 8-game winning streak, that was without Will Magnay. And, you know, he's one of the most impactful bigs in the competition, as we know. But that team just plays, man. They don't care who is out there on the floor. They run their offense the same way. And there is a trust from player to player. You see it sometimes on other teams. Guys are hesitant to perhaps give the ball to another player. You don't see it with the JackJumpers, and I'm sure that's been instilled in them in their trainings.
See the title of this show?
Yeah.
Moments that mattered. We saw one of the most incredible performances by a young man with a surname that's very well known to us here in the NBL, in Jaron Riley, plus 21 in 6 minutes. Now, for any of these calls of nepotism and the shallow observations from people, we don't want to hear that stuff again, because this kid came in the clutch, in the moments that mattered, and basically won the game for the Wildcats.
Jaron really is a DP, a development player for the Perth Wildcats. He is far better than the DP. He is a rostered player in this league. The only thing that prevented that was his late decision to come play basketball here in Australia. And he looked outstanding late in that basketball game. John really found a lineup with Henschel.
Just happened to be his son that was one of them.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, because they were going down. They were going to be 0-2. But Doolittle stood up. Windler was outstanding with 20 points and 15 rebounds. JLA is now here.
Yeah.
JLA is here. It took him one game. He had that so-so game at home. That's behind now. But Jaron really, I believe, is going to have to play minutes. I'm not sure if Mason Jones is the point guard that the Wildcats need. He may provide scoring and some offensive punch, but I'm not sure the fit is ideal with Ben Henschel.
You know what Jaron's got plenty of? Daddy's IQ. He's a really, really smart young kid.
He is, and you know, obviously I have a relationship with the Riley family, and I've known John forever and Jaron since he was a little boy. But Jack, can I tell you what makes your marriage really good? When you put the young son in. Do you know how proud Heidi Riley, his mother, must be? And that was just a great moment. But I saw him at the Blitz, and again, I evaluate players a lot, especially guys that handle the ball with. How do you perform in ball screen situations? What type of poise do you show? And immediately at the Blitz, I said that kid can play.
The other name that you mentioned there was Dylan Windler. Now, you go back 7 days ago on this show, we spoke about Dylan Windler, and your view at that stage was that he was a bit too passive and needed to be a bit more aggressive. He goes to New Zealand. What did you see that you liked from him on Saturday?
Well, he got on the glass, and I think he gains a lot of confidence through his rebounding. And we know he's a great shooter of the basketball, but I think, you know, Dylan played last season with Bryce Cotton, and sometimes it takes a minute to break out of that mindset and understand there are times this season where he's going to be required to be the guy, to be the primary scorer out there. And now I think, again, kind of like what I mentioned about Tiger Campbell, all it takes often is one good game, and these guys understand, okay, now I can go.
Great win by Perth. To go to New Zealand is never an easy thing to do, and that's a great win for them. Their opponents, the Breakers, they are 0-3 to start the season. It's hard to spend too long talking about them, Derek, because we've struggled to find positives out of what they've done so far.
Yeah, they look somewhat limp, and realistically, you know, when you lose 2 games like they did to Brisbane and to Perth at home when they were in winnable positions, it can start to eat away at your spirit. They've got to just get back to it, play really good defense. I believe they have a game in Sydney, and that, you know, that's an interesting one. It's a place where PJC always performs well. Lopez, though, I know I said I have Daniels as my #1 next star now, but I thought Lopez, he looked much better. And I think we'll only see him continue to play well. Menenga needs time to get himself back after missing a stint with a concussion.
The only concern that we spoke about before we started is just some of the body language stuff. And I guess that can happen when you're 0-3, but he's seeing anything there that worries you?
Well, we haven't seen Isaiah Brockington replicate the type of form that we saw in the Blitz. We haven't seen it yet in the regular season. He only played about 19 minutes, so I'm not sure what's up with that, but they've got to get him going.
And then the other team that are a bit hard to work out at the moment are the Brisbane Bullets, a team that you watch very, very closely. Tough challenge to go to Adelaide and play in Bryce's first home game. That was always going to be a difficult assignment for them. But And to do it without JFL in the second game as well,
Right.
it should be mentioned. But I don't know, it feels like there's a lot of work to be done to try and bring this whole thing together.
This is probably the most discussed situation in my phone. People are unsure what's going on with the coaching process.
Are you sure when you watch it?
It looks bad to me, Jack. It looks really bad. And what does it do to your playing crew? If Vandy is taking timeouts, but Stu Lash is the nominated head coach, what if their directions don't converge? Who ultimately are the players listening to? And it's becoming significantly evident that Greg Vanderjagt is pretty much the head coach, if you're basing it on timeouts. And which is very odd to me because Vandy, I thought, did a respectable job a couple of years ago when they had that whole coaching carousel season.
Yep.
And I thought Vandy did a good job in bringing some stability. At the conclusion of that season, he interviewed for the head coaching job, which eventually went to Justin Schuler. The Bullets deemed Vandy wasn't good enough to be the head coach and went with Schuler. Now, why all of a sudden is he now almost a de facto head coach? What has changed to catapult him into that position? And also, is the whole Bullets coaching staff better than what it was last season? Do you think Stu Lash is a better head coach than Justin Schuler? The experience would say to me no. And I think they've got to get all of that sorted out. The look, the optics are really peculiar.
So it's one of those situations, Derek, where if they were undefeated, we would say that it's working. But the reality is that they're not winning at the moment, so we have to question it for the way that it looks. And your point about who are the players listening to, when you're watching body language and when you're watching eye contact and things like that, it does, from afar, it seems as though they're confused.
Well, our colleague Ariana Prather is one of the great truth tellers in NBL media, and she pointed out in Cairns, she said quite clearly that she did not like the Bullets' body language. And sometimes body language can be confused with a bad attitude. When your attitude can be fine, sometimes poor body language can be reflected in confusion.
Yeah.
Maybe there is no clear line of instruction as to what's going on. Now, having said all of that and being dubious of the prospects of success if they continue to operate like this as a coaching crew, they're still in these games.
That's the positive.
They're still in these games, and they could have gone down to Adelaide, and everybody thought they were going to get their doors blown off. But they did hang in the game, and up in Cairns they had a chance to win despite the adversity they faced within games. So, you know, I think this game against Tasmania Saturday night in Brisbane is a big one, and we'll see how that coaching staff holds up. But I would just think, just change the way it looks in game for the public visibility, so it looks serious.
It's the Saturday night. I mean, they get the chance on their home floor to defeat Tasmania, but we've just spoken about Tasmania and how they win on the road. That we might learn a little bit about the Bullets, I think, on the weekend.
And if we know anything about the NBL, it is one of the most unique leagues in the world, and you can't categorically say something won't work. Maybe this will work for the Bullets and they'll run off 7-8 straight in a row. I mean, anything is possible, but I just worry about the confusion that it conveys to the players.
Thumbs up, thumbs down to finish. It's been a pretty thorough debrief of round two, so we will fly through these. Let's start with the negatives.
The negatives, I'm going to go with the New Zealand Breakers and Isaiah Brockington. You got to get it together. PJC, you probably need to lift as well and get back to an MVP level if you want that team to win some games.
Phoenix for me, just because that Thursday of AFL Grand Final week, it's become a pretty regular fixture between the two teams, and they fell away when there was a lot of eyes watching and there was a sellout. So I think they'd be pretty disappointed, but you always trust Josh King teams to bounce back.
That's correct, and they get their defense going, and they'll be able to beat a lot of teams in the competition. It's just Melbourne United are a juggernaut at the moment.
The good stuff?
Jack McVay, if you think he's not worth the money, you might want to go watch those two games. The guy makes big play after big play and carries himself in a way where the rest of the team must follow.
For me, Jesse Edwards from Melbourne United. I
Fair.
stayed with the throwdown theme. I saw them up close. Jesse Edwards is not going to be an All-NBL first team. He may be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But to me, it's such a shrewd piece of recruiting from Dean Vickerman and Melbourne's front office, because he seems to be, Derek, exactly what that team needs.
Well, if he has any desires to get to the NBA, this is the perfect season to be in the NBL, because when he matches up with JaVale McGee, he will have the opportunity to show NBA scouts what he can do against a former NBA guy and someone that plays at a nice level still.
We had plenty to talk about from round 2. We're going to have plenty to talk about next week as well, because United and the Phoenix have got games coming up against the Pelicans that we'll talk about as well. But we will be back each and every Monday to break down everything that's happened across the league. Derek, you enjoy your week.
Thank you, Jack.
We'll catch you next time on Moments That Matter.
It's the moments when stars come to play.